Brandon. Welcome for the third time to Hi Haley.
Thank you. Thank you. Hello, Haley.
All right, so since it's we gave you the first question. We already know what you're watching on TV. So now we're gonna ask you if you could have one food for the rest of your life, what would that one food be?
Yes, this is one I grapple with quite a bit. It's always between a burger or pizza, and I have an 8-year-old daughter, and they ask all questions, right? But
Uh-huh.
one that's always consistent is, "Daddy, what's your favorite food?" Now, being put in the position with this question to say, for the rest of my life, I would have to say pizza, and
Pizza.
that's because one, it tastes goddamn good.
Mm-hmm.
But two, you can put all sorts of different food items on them, and so super good. I'd say my favorite pizza of all time, if anyone's ever up in Minnesota, Young Joni is a restaurant, and they
Ooh.
make La Parisienne is the pizza name, but it has prosciutto, Gruyere, ricotta, brown butter,
Oh,
caramelized onions, arugula, and then pickled mustard seed, and it's just phenomenal. It's thin crust, which is what I prefer. So
thin
just super
crust.
good. Thin crust. Yeah, do you
People who
like thick?
prefer thin crust worry me. Like, come on. You
You know,
gotta
we're
get the
just we're
bread
just
in
simple. I,
there.
I want I want the toppings to be the show, right?
That's
And
true.
so we talked about like cake versus frosting, etc. For food items, I'd rather not have the outside container, so like a crust or a bun, to be the thick part. I'd rather have the meat and the sauce kind of be the thing that I remember.
So do you like deep dish then?
I will eat
Because
it
it's
for sure.
mostly
It's not going to
bread.
be on the menu every time I eat a pizza, but I have enjoyed them.
Well, good to know. Good to know. Good pick. So I'm not going to make you introduce yourself again since you have been on before. But
Yep.
today we're chatting about something you're kind of leading the charge of here at Ascendex, and that is Amplify. So can you give us an overview of what Amplify is?
Yeah, absolutely. So Amplify is our talent placement division. And so it's a service offering that when an organization has a specific need for a resource, whether that's technical, maybe platform, program manager,
Mhm.
something in operations or HR, we have a pool of over 2,000 resources that we can pull from across the world to be able to fill that gap. And so that gap could be, I need a full-time employee. That's an option. Or it could be I have a project, I'm implementing an ERP system. I need a technical resource for this particular module or project. And so then we can do kind of contractor type placements as well.
Mhm.
That seems to be the one that we place most often. And then there's obviously an option around contract to hire. And so that is you get a 6 to 12 month contract period where not only the individual, but the company can kind of assess and feel it out to make sure they're a good fit. And then post that, the company and the individual has the opportunity to take a full-time W-2 role at that organization. And so those mixes of all that good talent, how we construct them can fit within any organization or any industries. And it doesn't matter the maturity of the organization, they can be able to find the correct individual. And so more on Amplify is just around those technical roles that I spoke
Mhm.
about a little bit. Is you think about data architects, engineers, developers on platforms. We place many of those just based on our pool that we have. Project managers is also one that companies tend to overlook, but they shouldn't. Many times, just because you have a really great technical resource, it doesn't mean the overall project with a whole bunch of different resources and variables is running smoothly. And so it's not a skill set that a lot of organizations tend to train up within internal operations. So having someone there for a monumental transformational project is paramount. And so we place them as
Mhm.
well. And then, when you think about, I have a really specific, process improvement, efficiency, effectiveness gain type of initiative. We have those resources as well. Many black belts, Lean Six Sigma individuals that we have here. And then overall, depending on where you're starting as an organization, you may need someone to talk you through strategy, different models of how you articulate the 3 to 5 year roadmap, looking at your entire technology ecosystem, how to look at it differently to understand your spend, understand what the outcomes are supposed to be with that platform. And so we're able to place those SMEs in there as well. And so it's a really fun service that we offer here. We tend to focus on some specific platforms around ERP, data and BI, and then CRM. And so if you think about some of the major ERP type platforms, we focus a lot on Microsoft, whether that's F&O or BC. We do some Oracle Cloud work, especially in the placement realm. NetSuite's a big one for kind of medium-sized organizations. Workday, and then Acumatica is actually a new one that has come to the forefront here for smaller organizations. From a data and BI perspective, we do Power BI, we do Tableau, Qlik, Snowflake, Oracle, Data Haiku, Azure, Databricks, etc.
So
So we
many.
kind of run the gambit. It's a lot, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot. And then on the CRM front, typically Microsoft and then Salesforce. And so those are the primary for mid-market to kind of getting larger growth-oriented organizations. Those platforms tend to be the ones used most often because they do have the most flexibility.
Mhm.
And then with the resource pool that we have, we align them to those specific skill sets and platforms. And so then with those individuals, we're able to fill in gaps, opportunities, whatever you want to call them, for organizations that are in need of individuals.
You need it, we got it.
That's right. The last thing I'll say about kind of our model is we're not one of the big staffing resource placement companies. An additional thing that we do on a biweekly or monthly basis is for those hiring managers. So let's say I needed an ERP, let's go with Microsoft F&O technical resource. We can find you the right person, but we'll never send over more than 3 interviews to you. We're not the ones that push all the paper to you that the HR professional has to figure out, or the hiring manager. So that's one promise that we keep. The other thing that we do in addition is on that biweekly to monthly cadence, myself or other leaders within Ascendex will meet with those hiring managers and talk through strategy from an organizational perspective, from a staffing talent acquisition model perspective, operations, and obviously their technology stack. And so it's not, I'm going to put a person in a seat. It's more about your holistic nature of where you're going as an organization. So that one resource might be the perfect fit, and they typically are, but we also want to be able to wrap some good strategy and thought around that individual. And then hopefully that leads to kind of you guys as an organization kind of excelling into the future.
So why do companies have staffing problems in the first place to even need this service?
Yes, there are many a reason. But if you think, the paramount one is turnover. All
Mhm.
organizations have it, and that could come from a plethora of reasons. If you think about an organization that's trying to be super lean, and you can consider them they're understaffed, for example. You can then go to the flip side, and then we're overstaffed. So we'll walk through the understaffing first. If I'm being pushed and maxed out and doing overtime over and over again, even if I'm getting paid, I still want that work-life balance. And
Mhm.
so to push me for too long of a time, I'm going to start looking. And there's
Yeah.
so many things like LinkedIn or other recruiting firms that we're all getting pinged all the time. And so you have to do a good mix of we're not understaffed, but we're not overstaffed to make sure the individual is happy and content with the workload to make sure that they do have that work-life balance. If you look at overstaffing, what could happen is you could have a great employee, let's go with Haylee, really, really great, super motivated, doing all the great things. And if you have an individual that's kind of biding their time, they're not really motivated, they're not being as efficient or effective as Haylee, Haley's like, why do I want to potentially work for a company that's allowing this type of behavior?
Yeah.
Right. So the underperformers just sit there. They're getting kind of promoted at the same time table as you. It's
Mhm.
like, no, I'm going to start looking because
Frustrating.
I want an organization that rewards me. Another piece to that underlying turnover is related to growth plans. So many organizations don't have really articulated growth plans. And so I'm
Mhm.
sitting here, I come in as a staff member. How do I get to a senior? How do I get to a manager? What does the roadmap look like to be a partner of a firm or one of the executives? Those paths are super important to those individuals that you want to continue to promote at a pretty good clip. And not everyone's equal. And so if I'm starting to tick off all the requirements for the next step, um, Haley should be promoted, right? And so being able to know where I'm going from an individual employee perspective is super important. And so part of that is just if I'm unhappy and I don't know where I'm going, or the company's going, I may leave, and then obviously it leads to the turnover. If you go outside of just how do I retain and why are people leaving, there's so many different things when I'm actively looking for an individual. So I'm doing a reactive hiring type situation. Whoops, someone left. So I'm going to put together quick job rec, and I'll go hire the first one or two people I interview because I know I need this individual. Not a good philosophy. There's also inconsistency across many organizations around how we hire, the timeline, how many interviews I'm doing, what I'm talking to that individual about. And so not only are we struggling to retain employees, but then you flip it to trying to hire, and all those inconsistencies and not knowing the path forward is super difficult. I'll then flip it to potentially a lot of employers are starting to see ghosting from recruits.
Crazy.
It is crazy. Because I do some of the recruiting for our clients, it probably 10% of the time I will get ghosted. So they sign up, they say, yep, this is great. I want to do a brief intro interview with you. Never show up. I'll write back to them, be like, hey, sorry you missed it. Would you like to set up another one? No response ever. There are just so many opportunities out there now. And because we tend to be behind a camera, it's a lot easier. Back in the day, we'd have to come in for the interview, right? Dress up to the nines, physically come in. And so you felt an obligation. Now, because we tend to do these interviews remotely, a lot of people from a recruiting side feel like it's okay just to not let that company know, which is
That's horrible.
It is. Well, it's valuable time, right? I only have so much time in a day, and I sleuth through your resume. I align the strategy of the company with you. I think you're a good fit, so that's why I'm interviewing you, and then you just don't show. And so it's part of the vetting process, and hopefully, through college and through other platforms, people get back to being, their sincere selves and be able to actually show up to the meetings that they agreed to do.
Back to being human. I think too, we mentioned it in a Hi Haley with Matt B a couple weeks ago, and he mentioned like COVID changed a lot of that, just the world of staffing.
Yeah, no,
So,
COVID did quite a bit. And I'd say, one great thing actually for a talent placement organization or for organizations in general is the pandemic really highlighted independent contractors. And
mhm.
so you think about there's a big pool out there of individuals that don't want to necessarily join an organization full time. They like the independence, they like some flexibility in their schedule, but they're still super, super talented. And so what the pandemic really allowed individuals to do is like, I'm going to go find my own work. I don't want to have to come in, 8 to 5, Monday through Friday. I want the independent type lifestyle. Now, there's a risk to that, but there's so many great individuals that chose that path. And so now, if an organization can get over the traditional full-time W-2 employee methodology and have a mix of W-2s, independent contractors, potentially some consulting in there, your organization is going to be able to excel a lot faster because you're not
Mhm.
stuck in an old model. You're finding the right people that want to work in that type of environment. And so it's a good mix. And again, that was one of the things that kind of came out of the pandemic.
Crazy. Well, this was super informative. Thanks for talking with us about what Amplify is, and also being the third guest on.
I'm glad I was the first third.
Yes, the first paving away, but Brandon
Yeah.
will have to get you back on.
Yes. Love you.
Thank you.